Episode 36, The District is Open for Business, Storyville Part 1. Hello, my name is Summer, and this is Paying for It.
I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come on. I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come on. I'm gonna turn back my mattress and let you all my springs. I want you to find me, daddy, till the bell do ring. Oh, daddy, want you to shade and dry.
Thank you for being here for episode 36. I am very excited. I am truly excited for this episode. I have taken my time with this one, written something I hope you truly love. I have been telling you that I wanted my goal for this podcast this year to be spending more time reading the books about the ladies from our past. And I started with this topic and these books because they have been on my TBR and radar for a very, very long time. So to finally get them open and read feels very good. And then to share a little story with you in the end also feels so rewarding. So I hope you're enjoying this and hope you continue to enjoy where this series and podcast goes. Today's source was mainly from Al Rose, Storyville's New Orleans being an authentic illustration account of the notorious red light district. It has a name, yes, it's a very intense name really, but it is pretty much telling you straight up what it is. This is so exciting to have finally read this book. And boy, was it delicious. Was it a delicious read? And it's hard because nonfiction sometimes can be very textbook-like, can be very dense with a lot of information, and this holds true for this book. I just want to flip this over because honestly, I love the back. And if you're watching on the video version on YouTube, you can check it out. She's gorgeous. I'm obsessed with this depiction of a lady of the night. So yeah, I finished this and I'm feeling very proud of myself, and I'm feeling very excited to see how our episodes changed this year with serious looks into the ladies' lives, houses, districts, whatever it may be, wherever our stories bring us. So yes, this was our main source material for today's episode. It won't be the main source material for the entire series though, but yes, for today this is where I got majority, if not all, the source is for this book or for this podcast. And of course I will link all, like always, link all the sources down below. So yeah, this is technically part 2 of the new series that we have started. So this is technically part 2 of the Storyville saga that we're doing. However, it is the first part of what Storyville it was like when it was open, if that makes sense. So of course, I highly suggest you going back and listening to or watching the preface to this episode. Episode 35, The Scarlet Migration, Storyville's preface. I have it linked below as well, and it just kind of gives you a build up to what this series is going to be about and to this episode as well. So yeah, I highly suggest you going back and listening to that if you haven't already, or even watching it video version on YouTube. Anyways, hello, how are you? I am doing pretty good, honestly. I have just gone back from Austin. We got back Sunday. Today is Tuesday. So we went on a little weekend getaway trip to Austin, and it was a lot of fun. The reason we went was because recently Joe Rogan has moved to Austin and he opened up a comedy club downtown Austin on 6th Street, which is kind of like their Bourbon Street. It's like Texas's Bourbon Street in a way. And yeah, so he opened that right downtown 6th Street. And we went to go see the late night show of Ari Shafir. And yeah, if you're a fan of comedy, you might be a fan of him or you might hate him. Who knows? But we're a fan of comedy and we enjoy him. So we went and checked out Austin. It's been a while since I've been on Austin, and when I did go to Austin, I never went to 6th Street, so it was fun to do that. We stayed right downtown in the Omni, which was also a lot of fun because that's a fancy little hotel. I'm going to put up some pictures and maybe some videos. We got a patio to be able to chill on and kind of people watch and look out on the city for the evening. It was very, very nice. We are also foodies and drinkies, so we went and definitely explored the city. Our original plan was to go back to our favorite pizza place that is in Texas, and that's called Home Slice. But we changed it up this time because, we've eaten at Home Slice a couple times now. So, we had to change it up, and we did. We went and we got pizza still from another very popular pizza place in Austin, and that was called 313, I think. Oh my gosh. 319? I think it was 313. Oh boy. Oh yes, okay. It was called Viva 313 Pizza, and if you know anything about me, I love a deep dish. I love a deep dish pizza. I love the greasiness of it. I love the way the crust bakes in itself and it becomes crunchy and just delicious. And let me tell you, they did not disappoint with their deep dish. I mean, their specialty pizzas, they only serve deep dish, so I was very excited, and it was very, very good. I loved it. They were attached to this little bar, and to be honest, I don't even think I got the name of this bar, but they were attached because this was one of their food truck locations. So we got our pizza. We did some more walking because we knew it was going to be a bit. So we walked around a little bit in Austin, checked it all out, and then came back and ordered some drinks, waiting for our pizza to be done. And yeah, I got a land shark and also a spicy margarita. We shared them. They were delicious. And for it to be like, if you know anything about 6th Street, it's kind of collegey because it's right next to the campus. So some of those bars you can get a little nervous over because you're like, are they going to be good drinks or are they going to be college drinks? Who knows? So it was a hit or miss, but it was actually very, very good. And I was very impressed because, well, I mean, first of all, one was a beer, so you can't fuck that up. But the other was a spicy tequila margarita. Why did I say it that way? I don't know. And it was very delicious. So good on that bartender, good on that bar. And I'm sure the later that evening goes and the crowd changes and it becomes different. But yeah, for what we experienced, very good. Also, we ended up going to the mothership. We had a late night show, so we didn't go until the show didn't start until 10. We got in at 3, I had a little early checked in, and then we just spent the whole day walking around, coming back to the hotel, walking around, chilling. And so, yeah, I did a little oopsies though, because for my outfits that I planned, I just brought boots. I forgot to bring comfy shoes. And that was a mistake because one, we did more walking than I expected. Well, I mean, I expected to do a lot of walking. Usually when we go out of our little home spot, we do a lot of walking and exploring. So I did expect to do a lot of walking, but I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. I just forgot to bring comfy shoes, but I looked amazing. I looked amazing in both outfits that I wore. However, literally that first walk, one of my feet, yeah, right? That's right. Not one of my foots. Yeah. One of my feet, I don't know. I guess they sat weird in this boot and they rubbed up against each other and the nails sliced and diced my toes open. Okay, and I'm sorry if that's gross and graphic, but it's the truth, baby. They sliced and diced my toesies open immediately. So that first walk, Mama was in pain, but not too bad. Like I knew, like halfway through the walk coming back, I was like, something, like I feel that my toe is uncomfortable. So when I first got back into the room, I like took my boot off so casually and like took my sock off and I was like, oh, my foot was covered in blood. I was like, oh no. And then I had to wash it off. And at first I was like, it's just one cut. It's not a big deal. And then I realized, no, all like 3 of my toes had been cut open. And I was like, oh, dang. But no big deal because I'm a trooper. So I just like grabbed some cotton balls and like wrapped my toes up because we didn't have Band-Aids. And went on about our business. We continued to walk and we continued to have a good time. My favorite place that we went was La Pelotas. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that wrong. I will put it up here. And in the description if you're thinking about going to Austin and you like margaritas, I very, very, very highly suggest you go to this place because they had wonderful margaritas and they also had another little food truck in the back and we got one of the drinks called I think it was Pink Daisy, and it was spicy. It was spicy, but in the best way. It was delicious. It was very good. And then we also got a regular margarita because you can tell a lot about a place about their regular margaritas. So we shared those, both so good. So we ended up staying and having 2 more drinks where we got a nectar one and then a paloma, and also very, very good. So yes, we enjoyed that place the most, and we went and got some chips and queso and a single street taco from their food truck, and their queso was a Modelo cheese queso. And listen, wow, I was obsessed. So very good. I loved it. Yeah, I really liked it. Their chips were good. Their chips were homemade with like that. They were thicker, homemade with like a season on it, and it was so good. The queso was delicious, and yeah, fire food there. Fire margaritas there. They also are a mezcal bar, so you could switch up the tequila for something smokier and get a mezcal in your drinks. I'm not the biggest fan of mezcal, so we did not do that. And then we went to the mothership. We did other things. We went and got a coffee. We did lots of things, but we ended up going to the mothership, and what we didn't know about the mothership, which we should have known, is that it was a comedy show. So they took our phones and my Apple Watch and like locked them up, and then you go into this awesome little room, and yeah, it was a good time. The show was really funny, no awkward bits, and I really, really appreciated that because sometimes at a comedy club, you don't always know what you're getting into, especially with the opening acts and stuff. But the whole way, very good. Lots of fun, and I enjoyed it. On our drive back the next day, we got about an hour away from home and we got a flat tire. It was a bummer because it's a 3-hour drive. So it's a really not bad drive, but we got stuck in Hillsborough for another hour while we got our tire patched. So that was kind of a bummer, but you know, that is life. And so we made it back, and here we are. So yeah, that was my Austin trip. Long-winded story about Austin. But we had a good time, and I hope whatever you did this weekend, you also had a wonderful time. All right. So before we get into it, I would like to highly suggest and ask for you to follow, like, subscribe, wherever you're watching. I post my audio versions about 3 days prior to the video versions on YouTube. So whatever you fancy, wherever you're listening or watching, please subscribe and like. It helps out a lot. I'm paying for it. And yeah, I would just really appreciate it. So thank you. Anyways, shall we get into it? Okay, so by the late 19th century, prostitution was taking over the city of New Orleans. At least if you believe what they wanted you to about the ladies of the night spreading through the city. They would say that they were vile, dirty, and bringing sin and vice into the city, ruining the city. They would have the landlords and preachers screaming for change, getting the city to believe that the ladies of the night were public enemy number one. The landlords were demanding that the city take action on controlling and restricting the harlots. Their argument was simple. They drove down the property value of the very same houses they're trying to sell. If you were trying to sell a house that was just down the street from insert madam's name, like if you had a house that was running a brothel full of girls turning tricks, having cars come in and go in, causing a ruckus, that would be a huge no-no for the newly married couple looking for a proper place to raise a family. Then the preachers came into the mix. They are preaching for change. They are praying for change because, hell and everything. They wanted to save the women from themselves because they truly thought that hell was waiting for them. Or at least most of them believed they were truly trying to help. On the flip side of that is our girls out there just trying to live their life. Some did need help from their demons, the ones that capture a person, when they are still alive. Some were looking for this to be their way up and out. But some wanted the power that came with taking on a life of sin. And giving it up wasn't an option for a lot of women. And they had to have a way to make a living. And this was one of the only options that were left for women. So this was definitely not an easy issue here, and it has a lot of complexities on balancing and who was worth keeping happy. The realization that with money, the ladies gain a certain type of power that they weren't given to them under any other circumstances. That was when people started to really pay attention to what was happening in the city and with the ladies. They needed to make changes, and that leads us to an ordinance to bring balance back into the city. So with that, you know what time it is. Grab yourself a cocktail, a mocktail, coffee, whatever you fancy. Today, I just have a simple old Dr. Pepper. I'm going out with a friend later tonight, so I'll leave the drinking to then. And yeah, I'm going to pop this bad boy open. Beautiful sound. My fingernails got stuck in the thing. There we go. Beautiful sound. And yeah. So whatever you're drinking, grab it, sit back, and enjoy what I have to offer for you today. And yeah, cheers. And let me introduce you to the district, AKA Storyville, the beginning of the district. All right. So there is a lot of turmoil within the city of New Orleans. People want some sort of control of the wildness of the town. But they also knew that the ladies weren't leaving. Why should they have to, honestly? Sure, the women who were shipped across the ocean to an unknown world weren't the ones turning tricks now, but their ghosts still lingered around, cheering for the ladies of the future. They started this city, and they should not be kicked out. They would soon learn that controlling the city's public ladies was not going to be an easy task. The city and politicians started to seriously talk about legal controlled prostitution, and if you thought it was going to be a simple task, they were highly mistaken. The preachers would not be happy about the thought of legalizing sin. They felt that that would dignify sin, and they couldn't have that. The flip side of the landlords who were worried about their property's value going down for having brothels right next door was the landlords that rented to the ladies of ill repute all throughout town. They were not super happy about the idea of losing the ladies to a restricted district because they were able to charge these ladies outrageous prices. On top of that, when the city started talking about having the ladies undergo police supervised medical examinations, the medical professionals of New Orleans, thank gosh, started to push back on that very intrusive and dangerous idea. So at this point, New Orleans had wrestled with the idea of how to control what the city at this point liked to call a necessary evil, but what I would like to call a business. Because if it wasn't profitable, if people, men and women, weren't willing to pay for it, then we wouldn't be talking about it today, now would we? It wouldn't be an issue anymore, or ever. But it was then that they carefully prepared legislation of Alderman Sidney Story came up for consideration. It was in his plan that they finally came up with something solid, and when it came down to a vote, it was only met with weak opposition. Alderman was a respectable citizen and businessman who had pretty good insight on what he considered the quote-unquote problem. He got the insight on studying it while in Europe under the study of a prominent New Orleans attorney, Thomas McCaleb Hyman, who was doing legal research. However, alderman legislation wasn't anything new or intuitive or inductive. In fact, the legal principle had already been talked about by the mascot 10 years earlier in their March 26, 1887 issue. Now, if you remember from episode 35, the mascot was a satire newspaper that had new articles issued and released every Saturday. It was the mascot that was the first to talk about the city's leaders, corruption, and graft taken when it came to the public ladies of New Orleans. In their March 26, 1887 issue, though, they also are the ones who first bring up the basic idea behind Alderman's legislative plan. The proper remedy is to satisfy a certain district outside of which it will be unlawful for prostitution to be carried on and see that the ordinance be strictly enforced. So on January 29th, 1897, the council will pass Alderman's ordinance that limits prostitution to the area between North Robinson and North Basin Street and from Custom House, which is now Iberville, to St. Louis Street. On February 8th, an effort was made to extend the area to include certain areas on the uptown side of Canal Street. However, that was quickly squashed by the protests from the 3rd District property owners. So they did not get that. On July 6th, the same year before the ordinance went into place, and the council was attempting to iron out all of the factors of how this was going to be zoned, this new district, the idea was toyed with to split the district and segregate. This plan was eventually abandoned for the majority of the life of the district. Eventually, they will get a segregated district, but it will be right before the district actually closes, so we'll talk about that later. Leading up to the official start of the district, there are a few small but futile attempts to put a stop to the ordinance of legal prostitution. And so, really, on New Year's Eve, 1897, when the clock struck midnight and the city of New Orleans celebrated the new year, and the harlots celebrated the new year and a new dawn of freedom for them. Cheers to those ladies. Waking up on New Year's Day in 1897, the district was officially open for business, baby. And it truly happened just that fast overnight. Because, however, nothing too dramatic actually took place because the harlots had already been living in this area for many, many years before now. Now, though, they just didn't have to worry nor hide from the law. In fact, the law that was in the area was there to protect them and keep peace in the district. Alderman must have been so proud and happy over the fact that it was his work that brought some sort of outcome to what some considered a real problem. However, when the newspapers quickly nicknamed the district after him, well, he wasn't too happy about that. The new year and the new law brought in hope, and the city of New Orleans was excited for this new era. It's true that some groups really oppose this idea of legal prostitution. However, the regular, everyday citizens were truly ready for some actual solutions and control over this situation. And the ladies were excited over the fact that they could do their job they got paid for to do without the threat of law. Freedom of legal sex work confined to the district, but legal to be carried out within the perimeters, was a freedom like none other, and it changed the game for over 20 years. Oh, and boy, did it change the game completely, because now it allowed those who were born for greatness to rise to that fame. Sure, some might consider them to be villains in our story. However, don't we all go through our villain era one way or another? Like most businesses, especially salacious and new sinful businesses, when they became legal and open, there is a boom. And Storyville had its boom. That is for sure. Legally, all you had to do was go into the legal bound area of the district, and you could legally pay for whatever desires you may have on your mind. So, of course, this would bring troves of men and women into the area. How could it not? It was something new, exciting, and with the air of forbiddenness, of course, people couldn't help themselves but to come and check it out. Now you know the legality of Storyville. You hopefully understand that the hows of this legal district, the whys of it, but now let me take you to the district. Welcome to Storyville. Tonight, we are going out on the town, and I hope you are ready. However, not all of us here are going to have the same experiences as the other. Where your journey takes you depends solely on how much you are willing to pay for it, how much you have in your pockets. Now, mind you, before we get started, it's important that I let you know these ladies, they are professionals. They are here to make money. So make sure you understand that before entering. This whole district is designed to take your money. Now we will take the train into town. We will head to the South Depot, which will bring you right past the district. I know that the newspapers call it Storyville, and I know that's what I know it's known for that nowadays. However, we only knew and referred to it as just the district. Anyways, we will go through and get a quick peek, a little tease before beginning our night. As you pass the district outside your window, you will be able to see the girls, some stilettoed in their windows, tempting you with the outline of their beautiful covered bodies. Others hang in their windows half naked, some naked, leaning out, waving, and tempting you to come back to them. Looking past the ladies, if you can take your eyes off them, you get a quick glimpse of the beautiful mansions, the high-class houses, the houses of the best of the best. Stepping off the train right outside the district, you can still hear the girls calling to you from their windows, tempting you to come back and take your pleasure in what they have to offer. Now, you don't want to blow your load too fast, or your night will be over before it has even begun. So follow me. I'll be your guide for the first half of your trip. Don't mind all the cops. They are here to keep the peace. They won't bother you as long as you follow the district's rules and be a gentleman. Walking down Basin Street towards Custom House Street, now known as Iberville, where you will find yourself at Charles Macrate's shooting range. One of 2 shooting ranges offered in the district. Don't look so shocked. The district is designed for entertainment and pleasure, not just pussy. So the district has more than just sex to sell. Okay, come on, let's hail a cab. The thing you need to know about the district and the cabbies is they don't work for you. They work for the girlies. Yes, you will pay them to get you where you need to be, but that's chump change for them. Their bills get paid by the ladies, as they pay them to direct people like you to them. Anyways, let's get going. As the cab drives you to your next destination, you see the streets of Storyville coming alive. As the sun sets, not that Storyville was ever really truly asleep or closed, but Storyville was definitely not for the daytime. This was a place for the night, for the sin, for the dark. As you pass by buildings, you get quick, tantalizing teases of the jazz flowing through the saloons, bars, and those who are just playing on the streets. The newspaper boys are shouting at those walking by in attempts to sell their last papers for the evening. The cab stops at a big, bright neon sign that feels almost out of place for the time. Your guide speaks. Welcome to Tom Anderson's Saloon. The saloon is on the corner of Basin and Iberville, and he is somewhat of a legend around here in Storyville. And this is the place, the first person to have a joint open with a neon sign. More on Tom later. Let's go have some drinks and get the party going. Stepping into the saloon, and you are folded into the embrace of the jazz that is flowing from the live performers. The laughs and the dancing around you, this was dazzling. Half a block long bar, it was Storyville's showpiece. The streets and buildings are almost pulsating and alive, with all the jazz and piano spilling out of Storyville. Some like to say that Storyville was the birthplace of jazz, and that's not quite right. However, Storyville and the ladies that lived within it definitely helped raise and mold jazz. Jazz and music was a big part of Storyville, and Storyville was a big part of jazz in the beginning, and it helped raise some of the first greats. Outside of cribs, most houses that were upper and middle class would have some sort of music playing. Some of the most interesting, preserved looks into what it was like to live and work in the district can come from those who played music within it. Lucky for us, Tom Anderson's place is the hangout spot for the musicians when they got off their shift. Let's go speak to some. Let me introduce you to Jelly Roll. He's a legend of the district, got his start here and found stardom. He's in the middle of story. Sit, enjoy your drink, listen. You see, my young friends had brought me into the Tenderloin district at a very young age. Even before we were in long pants. In fact, we used to steal long pants from our fathers and brothers and uncles and slip on it. When the police caught us, they would slip us on in jail. One of them, I remember his name was Fast Mail Bruel. He was known to be Fast Mail because he had 2 legs and feet that couldn't be beat, and he would take the straps on the end of his club and cut our legs to ribbons. We kids were very much frightened of him, and at times would climb those high boards fences to escape. In those days, we had curfew in New Orleans, and when the curfew bell rang at 9, all the kids were supposed to be at home. Of course, it was our ambition to show that we were tough and could stay out after curfew. This is the story of how I got my first job in music. I had some boys entice me to go to the Tenderloin district. I finally accepted the invitation. I liked the freedom of standing at saloon bars, passing along the streets crowded with men of all nationalities and descriptions. There were women standing in their cribs with their chippies on. Side note, a chippy is a dress a woman wore knee-length and very easy to disrobe. On Saturday night, whilst on one of the wild jaunts, we heard that one of the houses were stuck for a pianist. My friends encouraged me to go for the job, but my fear was so great that the only way I would go was if my friends would go with me. I felt sure it was a plot to kidnap me, since I had narrowly escaped one when I was younger, on Melpham and Willow Streets. So they finally agreed to take the others upstairs along and put them into a rear room where I could see them, but their guests could not. I was so frightened when I first touched the piano, the girls decided to let me go immediately. One of my friends spoke up. Go ahead and show those people what you can play. That encouraged me greatly, and I pulled myself together and I started playing with the confidence of being in my own circle. That boy is marvelous. That was the remarks of the inmates. Money was plentiful and they tipped me about $20, which I did not want to accept because I was not taught that way. They wanted to give me the job of regular professor, but I could not see the idea. I was making about $15 legitimately. And furthermore, I knew that if my folks ever found out I had ever passed through the Tenderloin, they would deal with me drastically. I asked what salary they would pay. $1 a night is regular salary, was the landlady's answer. I flatly refused. Then my friend showed me how I made $20 on tips. It may be an hour's playing. You see, the dollar is guaranteed in case there happens to be some kind of bad night, so you will be sure of some salary, the landlady explained. But I will guarantee you $5 a night if you don't make it in tips. Anyways, I thought whatever happens in a family, all you have to do is take some money home and everything's all right. I then accepted the job, but would not stay the night. I reported the next night promptly at the given time, 9 o'clock. The streets were crowded with men. Police were always in sight, never less than 2 together, which guaranteed the safety of all the concerns. Lights of all colors and glittering glaring, music was pouring into the streets from every house. Women were standing in the doorways, singing or chanting some kind of blues. Some very happy, some very sad, some with a desire to end it all by poison, some planning a big outing, a dance or some other kind of enjoyment. Some were real ladies in spite of their downfall, and some were habitual drunkards, and some dope fiends and fellow opium, heroin, cocaine, laudanum, morphine, etc. I was personally sent to Chinatown many times with a sealed note and a small amount of money that would bring back several cards of hop. There was no slipping and dodging. All you had to do was walk in and you would be served. The girls loved the young professor and they worked the customers for big tips for me. I began to make more money than I had ever had in my life. I brought a new suit and a hat with an emblem Stetson in it and a pair of St. Louis flats and turned up. I'm telling you the truth, nearly to my ankles. Jelly Roll Martin. So at the age of 14, Federline Joseph Lamont was born into the Creole community. He started working as a professor for a brothel in the district. The professor was basically the house resident piano player, except Jelly would not stay the night where other piano players would. He would often sing smutty lyrics and eventually started going under the nickname Jelly Roll, which was an African-American slang word for female genitals. At the time he worked in the district, he was living with his very religious and church-going grandma. He convinced her that he was working a night watchman barrel factory. His grandma, though, will go on and find out what her grandson was truly doing for his money. She will go on to kick him out of the house, stating that he was disgracing the Lamont's name. She will go on to tell him that the devil's music would surely bring about my downfall. Jelly Roll will go on to gain notable fame throughout his life and will turn a spotlight eventually on the streets that raised him. Now, back to the district. The music really did play a huge role on the vibes of Storyville. Jelly Roll wasn't the only musician who got their start in Storyville. Though some went on to have great careers and become legends, others lost themselves in the district as well. All right, let's head out. Don't worry, you'll be visiting Tom Anderson's again. So, leaving the saloon, we turn towards the first house. It's a 3-story barren-style structure, address number 209 to 211. This is Gertrude Dix's. Later, it will also be owned by Mrs. Anderson. However, this house had a rich history of being owned by plenty of harlots from the past. This house contained ornate woodwork, stained glasses, mirrors, and exquisite furnishing. It's also known this house contained a rare book collection that was a huge erotica collection, which we love a bookish queen. Clarence Williams, one of the pianists who works within the district, according to him, really something to see those sporting houses. They had the most beautiful parlors with cut glass and draperies and rugs and expensive furniture. They were just like millionaires' houses. And the girls would come down dressed in the finest of evening gowns, just like they were going out to the opera. They were just beautiful. Their hairdos were just so, and I'm telling you, Ziegfeld didn't have any more beautiful women than those. Some of them look Spanish and some Creoles, some brown skin, some chocolate brown, but they all had to have that figure. Places like that were just for the rich people, mostly white. Once in a while a sailor might come, but generally only the wealthiest would come. Why do you know that a bottle of beer was $1? The customer would buy champagne mostly and would always insist on giving the musician money. Okay, let's continue. The next building over was number 213. This was a 2-story frame affair. This was the home of Diana and Norma. This was also where they ran their establishment of French house. The term French house was applied to premises in which oral was the main course of, or sometimes the only thing available on the menu. This kind of establishment reduces the need for space and allows for much turnover. These houses will be priced down compared to the houses that have a full menu. Keep them in mind for later. Diana and Norma both moved from out of state, and it is believed that Diana Ray traveled and established herself with funds from a blackmail operation in Kansas City. Both ladies are believed to be lesbians. However, historians believe they were not romantically involved with each other. Follow me to 217. Now this is the little annex, And Lizette Smith, it's described by her Patreons as the most refined down the line, and as just like home. The teeny frame building appears to have little space to provide for the volumes of business, but knowledgeable sources state that the Little Annex was probably the most expensive emporium in the district, and was visited by the house owner Tom Anderson, who would bring important visitors to show them luxury in private. Okay, keep coming along. You have to be someone important and with deep pockets, but also with the connections to get inside there. A 2-story building followed at number 221 and 223. It held 2 separate businesses that were operated by Minnie White and Jessie Brown. The building was walled through the middle and had 2 separate entrances. Minnie, who ran number 221, was well known as an entertainer, and this was an entertainment house, and it was known for its general rule of horseplay, the place that maintained the district's largest bill for intoxicating beverages. So it had plenty of rowdy and drunks. In 223, Jessie Brown, she keeps a house catering mainly to the local working man, think local regulars bar. She has a standard rate of $1. Locals, working men, and blue collars love Jessie Brown's place. It was said about her place, the cleanest rooms in town, and undivided attention of an experienced and not unattractive prostitute for 5 minutes. Jessie Brown ran her home similar to how the Cribs run. She divided the rooms into the house to provide just enough room to have the deed done and get cleaned up afterwards. Jessie, though, also offered in order, which was a $1 special that includes a hot breakfast of sausage, red beans with some French bread, and coffee, of course. That was a flash sale that ran from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. every day except Monday, and this is to help Jessie during slow times. All right, and yeah, this is the Arlington at 225 Basin Street, another one of the district's major show places, and another Anderson-owned enterprise. It was a mansion at 4 stories high, topped with a neo-Byzantine cupola, and it's Madame, well, the notoriously famous Jose Arlington. Don't worry, you will be getting an intimate understanding of Jose and Tom soon enough. Let's keep down the line. Martha Clark resides at the teeny house at number 227, probably the smallest house in the district, employing most of the time just the mistress of the house. Rarely she brought on more than 2 aides, except when it came to carnival season. We have come to Montgomery Hall, number 235, the most celebrated brothel in America, and was built and operated by Lulu Wright, the Octoroon Queen, whose all Octoroon Palace was a crowning jewel in the district. Now, we will come back and get to know more about Lulu in a bit. Again, this is just the intro to your stay in the district. You'll have plenty of time to explore and, of course, play. Now, that concludes the houses on the main first block of the district. The second block we will be heading to next is not as grandiose. This block will go from Benneville to the cemetery, and although this block isn't as glamorous as the first, it does have its fair share of celebrated landmarks. One of the most notable is Frank's Tarou's place. It's on the downtown lake of the corner Benneville and Basin. Let's head there now. Most outsiders consider Frank's Place a very low-down, rough cabaret. However, when entering into Frank's, you realize that's not really a rough at all, but instead just for everyday people. Frank had a bar counter where you go get your booze, of course. You grab yourself a drink and head over to his lunch counter to order a po' boy and some red beans and rice. That was all he sold. And you had to get it to go. Grabbing a place to sit and eat, enjoy the music that starts to drift in. Frank's place was known to have outside performers who played their music on anything but instruments. Nonetheless, it was good stuff. After lunch, we're going to head on over to 317, where Willie B. Pizzazz runs her brothel. She was known, like Lulu White, to have several octoroons who often people said she had the most beautiful women. Side note, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see Dreamy has come to visit, and if you're just listening to the audio, I'm sure you hear the very loud purring she's giving. Willie also was one of the first madams to appreciate the quality of music within Storyville. She had a gorgeous white piano put into her parlor house where she would start hiring some of the up-and-coming talent within the jazz scene. Jelly Roll and Tony Jackson were regularly employed within the house to play on the massive upright piano. All right, just down the street from here at number 335 was Emma Johnson's huge studio. This was the district's best known French house. This is the district's best known French house, but her studio was not limited to just oral, as she also offered a nightly sex circus. This was performed on a raised stage in her downstairs parlor. French Emma, as she was known, also offers a deal. Its nickname was the 60-second plan. If for any man who could restrain and hold off his orgasm for a full minute after penetration didn't have to pay. This, of course, allowed droves of economically minded locals to pile in to her parlor with all the confidence in themselves that they would be able to withstand more than a minute. Most all lost this battle. In fact, according to Emma, she permits a man or two to hold out now and then just to keep the mystery and the vibes alive. And that's so that the magic didn't fade away and people feel like this was a very unredeemable coupon. Okay, now the first block of Iberville Street between Basin and Franklin are entirely made up for cribs. Scattered within the cribs are various saloons, gambling places, and restaurants. Don't let the cribs make you get squirmy. The news and people whispers aren't always true. The ladies within the cribs may not be the top of their game. However, they are making a decent living for themselves to live their lives the way they choose. Most lived outside of the district and were everyday workers, supporting families, themselves, and just living their lives. The cribs, they don't get a bad name within the world. The cribs, they do get a bad name within the world, don't they? Some of what is said about the cribs may be true. Some may be there to scare the outside world to the districts and many districts to come before and after. It's not unknown that prostitution has a very tumultuous past with newspapers and political climates. It makes sense that the newspapers weaponize the easy targets. Think of the cribs as fast food, cheap motels, or cheap liquor. We have all been in a place where we have chosen the faster, cheaper option for convenience. I stand with the crib girlies, and as long as it's safe and legal, let them girls work. Anyways, let's continue on the tour. This part of the district was kind of all for the locals to the district and to New Orleans. Doesn't mean you shouldn't find yourself back here over on your trip, as the locals know what's up sometimes. All right, so now we find ourselves at 135 Franklin Street, owner JT Lala. This building houses the Big 25, which is the local hangout spot for all of the jazz musicians, many of whom will go on to become world famous. Here, the likes of King Oliver, Papa Mutt, Carrie, and Kid Ory would take their breaks and intermissions from their jobs within the neighborhoods, cabarets, and houses, and they would spend their time talking music, work, and of course, drinking and smoking. Now, let's keep going on the corner, 2 lakes of Iberville and Liberty, which is the casino on the uptown side, and the downtown side was the Gosha Hells Cabaret and Dance Hall. Now here, though, is where our tour will come mostly to an end, but that doesn't conclude the district. If we would continue on down the line, we would be met again with cribs and some small-time businesses, more for the locals. If you continue further down the line, you will stumble upon many, many more cribs occupied by Black workers. It's important to note this was the 1800s, and we may have a vibe here in Storyville, but that does not mean we weren't still fucked up. So yeah, some of the district was slightly segregated in its own way. All right. So now you have gotten a glimpse on what the district has to offer and what's it all about. We will head back to Tom Anderson's. It's about time for another drink. Also, Tom has something for your stay here. Let's go. This is where we'll end this episode. Just the tease to what it is to come within the district. Being open for business. However, don't worry, we are far from done when it comes to our stay in Storyville. Please, if you're enjoying what I'm doing here in this series and this podcast, consider subscribing, following, liking, and leaving a review. I put out the audio 2 days in advance and the video versions to follow on YouTube a couple days later. Thank you for being here. I will see you next time. And until then, have a great rest of your week. Let me know what you're thinking of this series. And goodbye. All right, Dreamy.
I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come. Oh, that. I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come. Oh.